We are
Oh,
live.
hey.
Okay, so this is the quintessential return of CornStars. A little different today. I'm going to check and make sure that we are in fact live. Petaculture Network, because we need to. It immediately went to something else. It is live. We are here. The Corn Snake Gurus have arrived. Good evening, all. Let me mute this. We are locked in. Wonderful. Okay,
Excellent.
so we are live tonight. This is CornStars. We haven't done a CornStars in quite a while. We are very excited to be doing CornStars.
Yes.
And tonight it is me as a host and Mr. Joe Rosa joining me also as a host, co-host, guest.
Hello.
We don't know. We're just we're out here doing it. We're enjoying it. We're probably going to be doing a few more of these as we keep producing content for this network. There's a lot of shows going on, and there's a lot of people staying busy. So we're going to spread out the love. But I do want to go ahead and give a huge shout out to the lovely sponsors that sponsor the show. That's BlackBox Cages. We've talked about them on every episode, how much we enjoy their quality, the craftsmanship, the engineering that's involved. You know, a bunch of CNC cut plastic put together the right way is a damn fine thing. You can always get a discount on your order by using THN24. I believe that's right. If it's not, I'm so sorry. Reach out to Justin, message him a million times to find out what the discount code is, because there is one. Also, Silent Hill Reptiles, that big dog JT and Minty out there doing work. He's back at it. You know, he had a little time off, but now he's back on the grind. I think he's already pulling stuff out of brumation. I think he does a staggered brumation and an early brumation. Something we're going to talk about is some of the stuff he has available. Joe, you ever breathe like that again? And then Mike, I'm coming to California.
I forgot I had a mic.
Yeah, you have a mic. But yeah, check out Silent Hill Reptiles. He's posted on Morph Market. He's posted on his website. He's posted on Instagram. Keep in check with them. Another wonderful sponsor of all of our shows is Fulvius Apparel. I'm actually wearing a Fulvius Apparel shirt tonight. Don't know how cameras work. Me and Joe have already talked about that. We stand up a little bit. This is the Kings of Leonis shirt. Repping the King Snakes tonight while I do a Corn Snake podcast. But yeah.
Mine's universal. I've got hemipains, so I still work.
Hell yeah. Well, Joe, we're doing a little different tonight. We're kind of just doing a little chat on the industry, on the market, on what we're feeling on corn snakes. We're doing a live show. We're gonna talk with a few people. I've even got a couple questions people have sent me. If anybody wants to, go to my Instagram. On my story, I have a little box for questions. If you guys post questions, we'll be answering them kind of towards the end of the show. But yeah, what's up, Joe? How we doing?
I got home and like frantically ran around trying to set everything up, like get the kids set up, make sure all the dogs fed, get everything set up, hang my flag back behind us so you can't see what room I'm in. And then I had spent all this time shopping around for a headset that wasn't going to piss me off. Get home, I have no idea where I put the thing. So I found it like right before you signed on. I just put this headset on because, like a good boy, I actually packed it back in its little case and I put it where it belongs. So that meant I was never going to find it. But yeah, other than that, super stoked that there's a CornStars episode happening right now.
Yeah, it's all about that hustle bustle to get things done, because you know you live specifically in the past, which is amazing. Joe, we do have one comment already in the comments. Your mic is coming in hot, so I don't know if you want to move it a little bit further away from your head or something. Let's try that. Hit me with a couple words. Talk real quick.
Yeah, how's it now?
Worse than ever. Brother, I cannot tell you how bad that is.
Hold on a second.
All right.
I'm going to try it this way for a second.
That sounds perfect to me.
Okay.
Don't know if that works for you, but let's see here. Mine is too low. Uh-oh. Well, goodness. Let me see.
Good.
Well, Joe, put yours back on.
Damn it.
Let's see if I can adjust my volume at all.
Yeah, because this thing's a whole new set. So.
Okay.
All right.
Let's.
Still hot?
That is quite loud. Amateurs. We have been told we are.
I know. We're so good at this.
Jeff, how's that sounding? How we doing? We locked in?
Oh, I'm so glad I can't see the comments right now.
Yeah, I have to have another screen open with the comments. Chris, your sound may be coming in from the computer. Well, Jeff, I have some bad news because I don't have a computer. So I am streaming from an iPad with a single output. So and this is the same setup I've used for everything. Well, Joe, maybe what we do is you take off your mic, and I'll leave mine on, and people just turn their volume up. It's probably the even way to do it. Also, I'm joined by the lovely John Lasseter. He's hanging out in my garage drinking beers with me.
I haven't seen him since Daytona.
Yeah, he's hanging out here. Everybody, we're live. Say hi to John. He's right there. John Lasseter. Hey.
Oh, that's pretty good.
It's because we got that AC in this garage and it's still 85 degrees today. Okay, well, awesome. Let's talk about some corn snakes. Let's pontificate about the Pantherophis. Joe, how's that collection looking? Tell me about it.
All right, so I had to move everything. All the animals had to get out of the house, and luckily, my mom was open to me moving everything into her studio. So I just got everything moved over there in the last couple weeks. And luckily, Mom loves having the snakes around. She's coming out with me when I'm doing cleaning, and she's actually sneaking in and cleaning without me.
Oh, like that's awesome.
Feeding the geckos and everything. Making sure everybody's got water if I happen to not be there. And she's, I just want to make sure they're okay. It's because Mom wants to hang out with snakes. But yeah, everything, aside from two from Daytona, those little baby corns are still, they're a struggle, but everything else is looking great. Most of the girls that I wanted to be up and ready to go this upcoming season look amazing. One of the males is still kind of small, but I'm probably going to try him anyway. Okay. Yeah, everybody looks pretty good so far.
Awesome. Yeah, one of the things we're going to talk about here in a little bit, I'm going to do a little recap, but it's kind of future planning a collection because you've gone through a kind of tumultuous time with yours. But yeah, my stuff's all good. Everybody's had their last meal for the season. I've got a couple of corn snake pairs planned. A lot of king snake, a little bit of Pitchiophis, some Emery eye complex stuff. But yeah, it's kind of really nice. This is kind of my favorite time of the year. Like once it hits Halloween, and I've done that last feeding, and I'm getting ready to like not have to feed 120 snakes for forever and ever. John's laughing at me. But yeah, it's a great time to really kind of sit back, relax. It also kind of gives me. I've sold some snakes recently. I've sold some adult snakes recently. It feels good to be able to kind of consolidate your collection, and that's kind of one of the things. That's one of the things about future planning, right? And that was kind of one of the first topics I wanted to kind of think about is as you look at your collection, especially as you look at as the year is winding down, what do we do to consolidate our either collections or our feeding schedules? Or Joe, what happens when you randomly move?
Yeah. Well, that's part of that. I get to be a little bit more complicated this year because I had to move everything. But luckily, I have so many sterilite tubs and everything laying around that packing everybody up wasn't really a problem. I mean, I don't ever want to move exoterra cages ever again.
No.
Because I've got, most of my geckos are in great big 18 by 18 by 24 bioactive planted vivariums, all this shit. And like moving a Euromastics that's in a cage filled with sand and tile and rocks and all of that stuff.
It's 400 pounds.
Yeah, dude, that thing. I don't know how me and my mom lifted it. That woman is way stronger than she looks. She's tiny. But yeah, just getting all of that moved in and really looking at, like, okay, now I get to spend a little bit more time with all of you. It's actually the way I have it set up now. It flows much better than I had it at my house because everybody's right next to each other. Yeah. So I can kind of sit and look and get a big picture.
But, and isn't that kind of an interesting that happens whenever you move one or two things, it always feels a little out of sequence. But when you move everything, all of a sudden everything's kind of like exactly in this weird sequence that we create in our minds.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's been really fun, sort of, and also pulling these things out because my daughter will come with me. She wants to hang out with grandma, and then everybody's hanging out in the snake room. We're looking at everybody, and I'm planning for the next season and everything. But I don't, I can't brewmate. Like, I don't get cold enough for long enough to brewmate.
Yeah, so that's the thing.
Yeah, so everything is food and light cycles, and then just, you know, the ambient cools down enough. It's worked out for me pretty well so far, so I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, just sort of looking around at everybody, figuring out, I have too many of you already. Do I need more of this one? Is this part of an ongoing project? Are the babies from these adults better than the parents? Do I still need the parents? Would they suit someone else better right now? Yeah, just a lot of evaluating, and then like, where is any fat that I can trim? Because if I have to move anything again, like, the easier I can make that on myself. And
it's a scary thing, and it's hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. And now I have to be a lot more deliberate about like planning on feeding days and things like that. Like, I already have a whiteboard. I've got everybody written out on it, and I'll figure out who's eating today, and, you know, are the males eating this month, things like that. And but now, you know, my freezer's still at my house. Snakes are at mom's house. It's about 40 minutes away, depending on traffic. And so, you know, if I forget something over here, well, too bad, that thing's not eating today. Can still go back in another couple days, but then, yeah, it's a little bit more planning and thinking ahead instead of just sort of flying by the seat of my pants, which is how I've done it for most of my life. It's not a bad thing. It's just a different way of doing it. It's probably going to help me.
That's one of the interesting things we kind of always take for granted, that I have my collection in my bedroom right next to my main room, right? And I can walk over to the office and go start digging through racks right now. But when you're displaced, we don't think about that. This can happen from a lot of things. Your situation unique, but all situations are unique.
Right.
It could be a natural disaster. This could be economic disaster. There's so many different things that can happen that cause your collection to be displaced, or cause your collection to have to be consolidated to a point to where you're getting rid of a certain amount of things.
Yeah.
And there's some level of future planning that everybody should kind of have in mind. What do I do when the hurricane hits and my house is being run by a generator and I have AC in one room, because that's all the generator can do. And so that's a really interesting thing we need to think of, especially as people who are breeding or have large collections.
Yeah.
It's really okay when you have, you know, that kind of 2 to 10 magical number where it's not really a collection, but it kind of is. And, you know, everybody is easily maneuverable into a single room.
And what do you do if you have multiple species with, you know, vastly different needs?
We know multiple people that have collections that require different rooms, regardless of the size of the collection. They have, you know, I have the cool room. This is where I keep my geckos and my colubrids. But I've got my arid room where I have my, you know, Nephurus, or my Australian species, or my African species. Right? Look at Phil with some of the African stuff he's working with in his ambience, or in the mid 80s in a room, just to try to maintain levels.
Right. He's not going to keep a bamboo rat snake in there. Like, that won't work.
No. That's not going to work.
No. And then if he would have to, you know, hurricane hits at the wrong time, he's got to move everybody. If he's got this more narrow focus on just, you know, their natural environment and what it's going to take to keep, then you can a lot more easily adjust to moving everybody at once.
Yeah. So for me, one thing I do for future planning is, for every snake I have, now maybe it's not every single snake, but every pair or so, I have tubs that I can consolidate them to leave. Because if a hurricane, I live on the coast, if a hurricane does take out my house, or something tragic does happen here, I need to be able to move them. Luckily, I have places I can take them. Joe, sounds like you also did as well.
Right.
But yeah, so there's some level we really need to think about once we start creating these huge collections, is what are you going to do? One of the really interesting and good things about keeping in racks that I've always thought of, I keep wooden dowels that are about the length of a rack, and you can take a screw and put it in the top and the bottom of the rack so that the tubs don't open. Take out your water bowls before you screw it up. But you could take that rack and put it in a car.
Yep.
Back of a pickup, right? When you're really in a pinch, there, the PVC that these racks are made out of is easily messed with. That's not the right word, but easily modified. And if I got to throw a couple screws in a piece of wooden dowel that I got at Home Depot that's 4 foot long, they make the square and the rectangle ones. It's easy enough. So that's something that I kind of maintained. If I've got to just throw the snakes in there and take out the water bowls, and we got to hit the road, and they are not going to care if they get tossed around in those tubs. The tubs aren't going to come out, and that's kind of the most important thing. Something to kind of always think about.
I run it about the same way. I keep a Sterilite tub, like a latch tub or something equivalent, around for everything that I've got, just in case.
Yeah.
I live in earthquake country. I live in wildfire country. We're not in a wildfire area where I am specifically, but that doesn't mean that something can't happen. And sometimes shit gets weird. Luckily, I had all of that stuff when I got the notice, like, get everybody out.
Yeah.
And then again, like, I am so severely fortunate that I had a resource to actually take something somewhere, instead of calling all you guys like, hey, guess what, you're getting 30-40 corn snakes next week, like, go to your hub, have fun. I didn't have to Craigslist a bunch of geckos. Not that I'm necessarily opposed to that, I just don't want to do it without the option.
Nisarg said in the comments, one of the things he maintains is heat packs. He lives up north. If it gets cold, if he's in a blizzard, if he loses power, especially some of the tropical or neotropical species that he's working with, you need something to keep them warm. You know what I mean? The scrub python's not going to be happy at 32 degrees.
No. And that's something I consider. We were talking about Phil's room and how everything is, sort of not necessarily matched, but they fit in that room. One of the things that I consider for just stuff that I bring into my collection, short of the Uromastics, because that thing's an anomaly, is it within my normal temp range if shit does go wrong? And I normally, at an extreme day, I'll run between 40 degrees and 85 degrees. But pretty much everything I keep can tolerate that, at least for a little while. Yeah. And then also, big old Costco pack of hand warmers just in case. And just always, I try not to think about the disaster too much, but I also want to be ready for it. And
prepare for the inevitable, right? Or we say inevitable, that very small percentage of a chance. It's the reason why when we hit 40, we have wills, right? There's a reason why we plan for these things, because you do not know what's going to happen, and Mother Earth don't care about you, right? Like, and also the economy don't care about you, right? Things can happen, and you have to leave your house, or you lose your job, and you're like, if you're in a tough spot, you gotta go, right? It can happen, and life comes at you from all different directions, and you're not going to be able to plan for it, but you can prepare for it. And so, everybody, again, another great comment. Jeff says, he's glad to hear us talking about evacuations, but it's something that many people, they think about, or excuse me, he says that it's not something people think about until it's all they can think about, right? So future planning is huge, especially when you are a breeder or have a large collection, because that damage control is not throwing 100 snakes in the back of your Chevy pickup. You have species that eat each other. You have species that need to be kept at different temperatures. You have to have species that are kept at different humidities, and also that react differently to light. You have animals that react differently to socialization, regardless, right? I cannot take a leopard gecko and a cave gecko and treat them the same way. It is not going to work. So everybody out there needs to be kind of cognizant about future planning, and it's kind of one of the topics I wanted to hit at first, because Joe, you kind of went through that. And so luckily
even
it worked.
as prepared as I was, it still sucked. Like there was maintaining even a remote amount of positivity through all that was not easy. But I call it, I think that it's because I'm fortunate in where I am. I happen to have some storage space in a garage, which means that I have a place to put all those empty tubs. If I didn't, I'd like to think that I wouldn't have as many animals as I have, but like most of us, I have a fucking problem, and so
We're
it's
all
gonna
addicted,
happen
yeah.
anyway. Yeah, but yeah, like you were saying, as I get older, try to stay ahead of things, stay more prepared, and especially after this, like I'm not gonna have an animal without an escape plan for it.
No,
just in case.
It
not fair
really
to the
takes
animal.
one. Yeah, it really takes that one time,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just like shit.
Yeah.
What do I do? That was that was me here a few years back when I lost AC and we were out of town. And you can't plan on something happening while you're out of town because you can't be there. But coming back and having lost some animals, and it was 90 degrees in the room, my snakes were great, man. I put them all in tubs and moved them into the living room where we had the portable AC set up, hooked up to the generator, no problem.
Yeah.
What happened with the geckos? Wasn't thinking that far. Ended up moving the racks out there. But yeah, you take the whole picture in, take the whole insight, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I'm just glad it didn't happen. I didn't have eggs in the incubator. I don't have. I have 2 tiny babies, but they're, I'm fighting death's door with them every day anyway, so that wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
Dude, pretty much everything ate a day or two after I moved them. They're all like, again, this is like so much luck. I'll give myself a little credit for how I keep, but a lot of it is like I'm so fortunate that I got to move them to somewhere with an almost identical climate. There's a little bit more temperature variation over at the house they're in now, but yeah, that was a lot of like, I was just very fortunate on that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad, man. I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, me too.
Good. Well, yeah. So yeah, back on as far as collection recaps, everything from Daytona is doing well. I think that's what you were saying. Everything you'd come in. I do a huge PSA just for the humans out there putting their earballs to my eyeballs. Woma pythons are the absolute most fucking psychotic animals on the planet. I don't know what that snake is doing. It's either the most placid, beautiful little snake I've ever seen, or the most demonic, belly turning, eating its own tail. And it's not like a California king snake. I know that it wants to eat me. A corn snake, I know, wants to get away from me. Gray banded king snake, I know, wants to wiggle around and look at the sun like it's an idiot. But for some reason, these Romas are different every single time you look at them. It's hilarious. They have personalities, and they're, I don't know, I'm really enjoying them.
It's good.
They are funky critters. Jeff did ask a question. I'm loving that we're getting some questions in the chat. He said, "Did you have any luck with those vertebralis Cape gophers?" Yes, I produced a clutch this year. I produced a clutch last year. Mine have just eaten their last meals last week and are going to be going into brumation here pretty soon with Mr. Lassiter, who's sitting here having beers with me. Hope to have a clutch next year. One of my favorite species, and I was very lucky this year. I did get got to purchase a pair of Bimaris, so I'll be able to have both of the Baja Peninsula Pituophis to stress out with. So now I've luckily got most of the cool Pituophis in the hobby, and gonna see where they go. I'm excited to work with them. So we'll enjoy that. Let's see what else we got here. One of the things I want to talk to you about, Joe. One of the things we're gonna hit tonight. Let's talk about that corn snake market. What's it doing? What are we doing with well, here, Joe. Actually, I have a question. Before we start, let's. Did you go to Coluberfest this year?
No, because I went to Daytona, and I was not going to be able to swing both of them. Like, unfortunately, running the position I run at work, having a family, it ain't easy. Big trip.
I'm right there with you. Yeah,
my big trip was going to Daytona.
If they get a little bit.
Are you going to Coluberfest instead? Are we disowning you?
So this year I was at Daytona, and I know I'm not going to Daytona next year. I've gone the last 3 years, and I told myself I wouldn't go just every single year. It's quite a trip for me. But I didn't go to Coluberfest. I wanted to. We love what Zach and Clinton are doing. They're 2 amazing guys in this hobby, and so many of the other sponsors and people that got involved. the Show Me Reptiles group. This year, and John's sitting here staring at me. He had a little sign that said Kluberfest on it. Want to hopefully maybe go to Kluberfest next year.
Right.
Potentially. It depends on work. It depends on vacation.
Yeah.
John's saying everybody needs to go.
I've been to 1,000 shows.
I don't know if y'all can hear. John said he's been to 1,000 shows and it's the best show he's ever been to. John said that it reminded him of the OG Daytona shows,
Right.
where everybody it was a buddy convention. Everybody had a huge array of different species on their tables. Everybody was just happy to meet and greet and talk. Yeah, and he said there wasn't a table that you would walk by. John, did they have good corn snakes there?
Yep.
He says yes, they did. I know Eric Westmoreland was there.
Yep.
A few other was JT with Silent Hill Reptiles there.
I don't remember.
I can't remember. But yeah, so that's something to think about. Everybody that's out there corn snaking it. Eric Westmoreland just said John knows it is an event. So
Yeah. And I mean,
awesome.
go support what the CCR guys are doing. In any case, I just listened to their last episode yesterday at work, and just always great hearing them. I'll listen to them talk about.
The big thing
jamming
is about
everything forever.
You're also supporting the guys that are supporting us, right?
Right.
It's the, and I say guys, the guys and girls. They have some wonderful guests. You're supporting the people that are going out of their way to make sure that colubrids are in the spotlight and putting out great content to talk about colubrids, which is one of the things we're going to be talking about. I'm not going to be doing like a market recap like Clint does. In fact, if you listen to Colubrid and Colubroid Radio, Clint does a beautiful market recap where he talks about colubrids and where they're standing. We're going to talk a little bit tonight. A bunch of different topics. I don't think we'll get to all of them, but we're going to talk about the corn snake market in general.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, did you? I may be remiss when I ask this. Did you produce any corn snakes this year?
This year, I gave everybody the year off so that I could bulk up a few more. I want to make sure I get my Ladies Island girl going for next season. And I still had a baby from year before last sitting around.
Yeah.
And, it's promised to a friend. They're supposed to get a cage and all this, but it's still just sitting here.
Yeah.
But I didn't finish selling off my babies from 2022, 3. I don't know how years work. Season before
time is
last.
fake.
Yeah, it is. I didn't finish selling those babies off for a while because I just had this straggling group of 5 bad feeders that when they finally got regular, I sold them all off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to take a year off of babies, get everybody settled, really see where I wanted to go and look around and see where everybody else is going. Because if I've got somebody right next to me producing the exact same thing as me but better, I don't need to make 20 of those babies when I can buy 2 from him.
That's difficult. Also, when you have somebody producing the exact same thing as you, especially if you're at a show or something, and they're wholesaling it, they're just cheaping it to get it off their table.
Yep.
That's a kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So I only had 2 clutches of corn snakes this year,
Right.
and that was planned. And I was really surprised at how well they sold this year. I sold out pretty quick. I do have a couple babies kind of lingering. I think I have one more Silent Hill line, Miami honey. Gosh, I can't say it right. Miami mask honey. And
Okay.
he's a little stunner, and he just didn't sell.
Yeah.
But that's kind of one of those snakes that it's like okay because watching them go through that ontogenic change is like the best.
Mhm.
And I think I have one. I don't even think I do. I need to check. A lot of stuff got claimed, and like people are just waiting to pick it up, or waiting for me to ship it, or waiting for temps to go down because I live in the butthole of hell. But only one yellowhead stripe left, so there's not many things left, which really surprised me.
I'm
But what I
shocked that
did,
thing's left.
so I decided to pull up the Morph Market. You could go on and kind of see what has sold. And I was really surprised to look at some of the pricing on corn snakes right now because everything is it's obviously down since COVID. 2020 was kind of the year. But when I go through here, there are a few things that really stand out. I am shocked at how many snows and snow type snakes. So you got your Sunkist snows, your snow stripes, anything snow. it is just instantly sold. Your salmon snows, and I say instantly. I'm looking at sold listings, not looking at how long listings have been on here.
Right.
I'm not a morph market guru, but a lot of your blood red stuff, your snow stuff, you don't see a lot of the typical ghost stuff having sold. You don't see a lot of palmettos having sold. You don't see a lot of scaleless having sold. But my goodness, when I look through here, I also see a lot of Silent Hill reptiles that have sold, which is awesome to see. Huge shout out to JT and Eddie. But you're not seeing low price snakes selling. Sure, there's some in the $70, $7,500 range, but a lot of the snakes that you're seeing sold are $120, $150, $200, $400.
Yep.
And you're seeing some of these big combo snakes, some of the stuff with lavender, or even some of the stuff coming in here. I'm looking at it right now. You're seeing some of the pied side blood reds going up for $450, $500. Italian blood red granite, $600.
Yep.
And these are sold. That's great. It's a kind of a great thing to see in the market, considering we really thought that corn snakes this year were not going to be an easy sell. So
I think there's a trend going around, and especially you just brought up the blood reds. This last year before it as well, like blood red and especially pied blood reds, have been getting consistently and significantly better.
Yeah.
And just much more dramatic. And so, and as that happens and the price goes down, you'll still find some that are $1,200, $1,500 for things that are, how did that even hatch? Half of that snake is white. But, some of these lower...
Isn't that crazy to see that?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're so nice. And it's one of my favorite morph combinations, whatever you want to call it, because I do still love, like, the old school, like, horrible brick red, dark blood reds. But, you give me a nice hypo pied side, and there's not much that'll beat that in my collection. They're just so nice.
That contrast is insane.
And then any white snake, snows are always going to be big. I'm surprised the price is as high as it is for them right now.
Yeah.
2 gene combo. And this, we're not looking at motley or stripe, anything added into it. It's just amel, anery. And I was looking earlier today, and even at the last few shows that I've been to, normals are dirt cheap. Any wild type, dirt cheap. Even, an Okatee that's not coming off of Abbott's table is pretty cheap, unless it's got those big old Sharpie borders already and somebody knows what they're doing. They're going to sell it for a little more, but I'm not seeing as much, at least at the, when I go physically to the shows, not a lot of the ERO stuff. And you get some plain amels here and there. And if Carol's at a show, that throws a wrench in everything, because everything on our table is so good.
You're in the area with Carol Huddleston, and I have to assume that her stuff is just flying.
It's at some shows, yes, but at other shows, like, people won't move corn snakes here.
Huh?
It's really weird. She'll have some beautiful, there'll be a cinder out on that table for $45, and no one's looking at it.
That's crazy.
But we've got some of the ball python guys around. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of crested geckos here, and beardy. Yeah. So a lot of
bearded
people really love that. Yeah. We usually have a couple pretty decent sized tables that just troughs full of beardies, and some of them are actually pretty nice. They're not for me, but
I mean, bearded dragons are cool, but that's commitment.
But yeah, that's corn snakes in person seems to be odd, and I think maybe people got burnt out on just an excess of normals and aneries, at least here. It might just be me though, because anery's not my favorite sort of gray snake type anyway. I'm 100% like a pewter charcoal. I'm charcoal 100%. But yeah, snows are always going to sell.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised at how well they're selling and how much they're selling for. And I'm not complaining. I want them to sell high, because hopefully I'm producing a shit ton of them next year.
Yeah, there's this weird thing about people seeing a pink snake that gets pinker as it gets older, and they're like, that's That's even the python guys, the king snake guys, the lizard guys. Everybody sees it and they love it. Also, every little girl or little boy even sees it and they love it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's I had one salmon snow left from last year. I took it to I only do 2 shows a year, but the last show I went to, I almost also sold out on the corn snakes I brought there. There's something to be said about $100 to $150 corn snake. That's somebody's first pet,
right?
And that's what they're looking for. But when you go to a big reptile show or a medium-sized reptile show, I guess, and there's a lot of flippers. There's a lot of a lot of geckos, a lot of ball pythons, and somebody goes up to your table and you have a handful of corns, and the first thing you want to do is talk to them and tell them about what those animals are and what you're passionate about with those animals, and then you kind of get easy sales from there because they know, hey, I can reach out to you if I have problems. I can reach out to you with questions. So
it's not one of the flipper tables. It's not one of the. I'll wait till next episode to start naming some of the bigger guys that take up 5 or 6 tables and deli stack 6 deep under a net.
And that's a big deal. You kind of create a more realistic, personal mom and pop scenario with the buyer of the snake. You're not sitting behind the table on a chair, scrolling your phone, looking what's selling on Morph Market, what you're going to list next, what you're going to try to breed next year, and you get up and get front. And that kid doesn't care if it's an Anery or an Ultramel or a Snow or a Palmetto or some scaleless Wiggle Womp Zipzorb. They're just excited that it's a snake that you want to be passionate about and talk to them about.
Yeah, and it's do I like the color of that thing? Is it cool? Like, it's gonna bite. How much is it gonna bite? Like,
does it hurt when it bites?
Yeah, my kid finally got tagged by. It's actually one of yours. I've got a Snow Motley. Can't remember what else it's got in it. Normally super mellow. It was just in a mood that day, and she's holding it while I'm running through cleaning everybody. And it's so much fun having her and my mom in there because the second you pull out again with them, like any of the snows, it's just hands out. Give me that snake right now.
That's awesome.
And I gave the kid the Snow, and then I took something outside. I was having pretty good cloudy sunlight outside, so I wanted to get a couple nice pictures. And while I'm out there trying to take a picture of one of the weirdos from Carol Huddleston, I'm just hearing inside, it's biting me. It's still biting me. It bit me again. Going, and it's not hanging on. It's not even S-ing up. It's just every once in a while it'll just turn. And it's just pecking her. And it was really hard not to laugh. So I just laughed anyway. But
you have some of that weirdo stuff from her, right?
Yeah, I've got a pair from the first clutch that she released to the public. I think the first clutch from, there's the original weirdo female, and then her son was bred back to her, and I've got a pair from that clutch.
When are those going to be ready? When are those going to be ready to breed? Oh, we lost Joe. Joe, you're muted, and I actually can hear somebody else now talking. I hear a woman's voice.
Hey, that's really strange that you heard that. Hello. I have no idea what you just said after I talked about the
you went mute, and I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah, that was weird. It was like somebody else was talking, and we were hearing that. But no, when are those weirdos going to be ready?
I'm probably looking at 2 years.
Okay.
Maybe next year. Not the 2025 season, but 2026 at the earliest, I think.
Those are exciting. Those are really cool. I love that nobody knows what's going on with them, and they're just weirdos.
Yep.
They're like line bred hypo E Miamis.
Really cool. They're very strange. And I'm going to pair them, and then I'm also going to throw the male at one of the pewter girls just so I can start working a line with my pewters into that and see how much that fades.
Awesome.
Because
that would be awesome.
Slate gray corn snake. I want it.
I gave up on my pewters. Joe.
I've got one of the babies.
I know. I made the decision this year when I was making my thinnings that the pewter project was not something I was going to get. One of the things I was really, really excited about, and I gave up on it. And I don't know if that was me just falling out of love with it. But when I was looking at all the corn snakes, there's still quite a few. I
Mhm.
didn't. That was it. I was like, all right, I'm gonna sell my. And maybe I think I hate to say this. I think it was Tessera that killed me on that project because my male
Right.
was a Tessera charcoal head blood red head diffuse, and my female was a pewter. And I made some awesome babies. I mean, I made some killer pewters.
I know the one that I got is amazing.
They were great. They were great, and I kind of was like, man, I want to make the Tessera pied. I sent the blood red pied to Justin, the
Mhm.
head charcoal. We didn't get any eggs he got eggs. They went bad. I think he's planning on pairing them up again next year. But I needed to get some of those, hopefully, pied head charcoals to pair back in. I needed a male. I still have some babies left over, so I'm obviously I still have holdbacks because I have holdbacks on holdbacks and holdbacks again.
Yeah.
But one of the things, kind of in contrast, so what you're talking about is being at shows. People are looking at some of those really bright colors. People are looking for those fur snakes. One of the things I've noticed, especially online, and also in some of the groups that I hang out in, some of the locality king snakes, some of the Mexicana groups, also some of just the general colubrid groups. One of the things that's getting really popular and seems to be picking up popularity is locality corn snakes. Chris Montross is somebody who works with a couple different localities. I have some locality snakes from him. But it's really interesting. As we subsect and divide our hobbies, we look for those little micro niches inside, and that kind of locality box has been getting checked more and more. I think Zach and Clint have done a really good job about talking. I just moved my table on accident. Have done a really good job about talking about the importance of locality. Obviously, we all talk about it on I think every THN show it gets brought up.
Right. Well, especially if Jake's anywhere near it, you're going to hear about what county everything's from.
Jake's going to talk about the color of the water at the river that he found that yellow rat snake at. At the shows that you're going to on the West Coast, are you seeing any locality animals?
Very little. It's more, you might get a few odd species more than you're going to get a specific locality. Sacramento show, we do, and I wish I could remember this dude's name. One of the guys that wrote the Gray Band book. I can't remember.
Merker, Gerald Merker.
Yeah, so he'll be there every once in a while.
Yeah.
And he's got some gray bands there, and everything, it's got its locality listed. I actually had a really cool conversation with him, showed him the babies that I got from you. Like, these are 3 Mile West of Sanderson. Here's these. It's part of my buddy's project. Super great to talk to, signed my book. And I don't know what Everlassetter's saying, but I'm on your side. Fuck you guys.
Sorry. Keep going. So,
your
book?
Yeah, he signed my book. And tell John to keep mouthing off at you. It's perfect. I can't hear him, but I'm glad when you turn red.
I keep turning beet red because Dad keeps getting mad at me.
Sign my book too.
John said he signed my book too. I'm about to get him a headset. Awesome. Let him just jump in.
Yeah, please. But yeah, there's not there's no locality corns. There's not even real.
Stop it. It's kind of few and far between, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
You'll go to a show, whether it be even Daytona, where you see a lot more locality animals. Shows here in Texas, shows up north. You go to the show in California, and you just don't see a lot of locality corn snakes. So yeah, I think I've seen a huge uptick in them. John says because they're in the east. But yeah, so you just don't see it. But the people that are working with them, Yasser and Chris Montross, and there are a couple other people working with locality corns. I have a couple locality projects. Justice Smith has a couple locality projects. Right. I think Jake Bratz has some of the Lady Island stuff. They're kind of in high demand, right? Like they're the kind of animals that seem to. They're the ones you get the pre-orders for. You put me on a list for those next year.
Right.
So that's something I'm kind of seeing interesting as a dichotomy in the corn snake hobby now. And I think a lot of that has to do with the podcast. People want to be excited about the things that you're excited, right?
Yeah.
And so the more we talk about them, the more other people talk about them. It's almost like as a group thought, we all get excited about locality ideology.
Kind of ties into some of us, like, we'll get excited about the canon of like in nerd culture, you get Tolkien or Star Wars, X-Men. We've gone on
Yeah.
about this, Spider-Man canon, and you get, well, when did you start reading? Well, when this storyline happened, or when did you
Yeah.
start watching? Like, oh, I saw Return of the Jedi in the theater when I was 6 months old. Fuck you, it counts, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then with things like the Ladies Island Clutch, like I was one of the people messaging Justin like, hey, in 2 years when you produce these, send me some snakes. And I hounded him every few months. I think that's actually me bugging him about the Ladies Island is how he and I became friends.
Yeah, that's kind of
But
funny.
then over here, we don't get a lot of, we don't have a lot of other native rat snakes either. There's not a lot of people working with them. We will get some locality gopher snakes. We'll get San Diego's, and not San Diego's, Sonorans. There's a few people making some beautiful Sonoran gophers over here.
Nice.
I've got one of my buddies that usually vents the show. Stephanie, her and her family run scales, and they do some beautiful boas. Just some of the greatest tokeis I've ever seen. It was really fun watching my daughter hold a tokay for the first time and then go to pet it on the head, and 4 people just, no, don't do that.
That's rad.
But yeah, they do some really great Sonoran gophers too, and every time I walk up to their table, she just reaches in, or their daughter reaches in and just hands me the snake and smiles because they know how bad I want it and I don't have room for it. So we get some of that, but it's not, we're not getting gray and yellow rats and all of these other things. I haven't seen a water snake over here ever, as far as I know. Yeah, it's just not, it's not as diverse unless you're starting to go to some of the bigger shows. Sacramento and Anaheim. I haven't done Pomona yet, so I can't speak to that. But there you'll get some people that are coming in with like, here's my weird little thing. Here's 400 of them. Come and love them with me. You get that.
Yeah, and it's an interesting shift within the colubrid hobby, and we're probably going to talk a little bit outside the corn snake hobby. John actually just told me to say that the one thing that's amazing about locality animals is that taxonomy can keep changing, scientists can keep changing their mind on what things specifically are. But if you have a specific locality of something, you have the exact phenotypic representation of what that animal should be from there. That's an important thing for us to remember. We draw boundaries. We make decisions and classifications on things. We put names on things. These aren't cars, right? This isn't a Ford Mustang, right? A corn snake, Chris Montrose calls them rosy rats. He says, these are the specific locality from here in South Florida. These are red rats. These are I think they were Rosale, Pantheropus Rosale down there. Might be wrong on that. Sorry, Chris. He'll get on to us. But yeah, that it doesn't even matter what we call it. It doesn't matter what name you put on it. It is not a mass-produced car. It's a true phenotypic representation of the animals from there. And I think people are really getting excited. They're getting really excited and really prestigious about it. And I think that's really neat to see. People like Carol Huddleston who are working with Miamis and have true Miami locality animals that they're line breeding. Jeff Abbott, Greg Abbott. Oh my gosh, sorry.
No. Pick 6 or 7 more names. You never get his first name right. It warms our hearts.
Is it Lee. Also not Greg? Lee Abbott.
It's Lee.
Oh man, love that for me. Yeah, so I'm not the best with names, but Lee Abbott working with true Okity line animals and line breeding them. Howie Sherman working with true Okity line stuff. Some of these other the Holy Trinity older guys, your Craig Trumbauers, and they're constantly working with these locality animals. Some of those Devil Garden anneries that Joe Peck's working with. Some of the locality lava stuff that he's working with. How cool is that, right? Like, I really, dude, those Devil's Garden anneries are so badass. Locality morphs.
Okay.
True locality mutations.
I have a question, a little offshoot on this. We talk about the Holy Trinity. Do we call it that because making it a quatrain is too hard? Because why isn't love in there?
That's a good question. And she should be. at the same time, we would put Walter Smith and Don Soderberg in that same group, so it'd be a quintet.
And then do we have to go back to Bechdel as well, and like all this other stuff?
You got to go back to Bechdel, and then. So I think the reason Justin calls it the Holy Trinity is because it's Howie Sherman, Craig Trumbauer, and Tony Dungara, and they share a section in
that makes
Daytona
sense.
that they've always shared. It's that little corner.
I forget that the things that we say in our group aren't necessarily the hobby as a whole.
They are not indicative of the hobby as a whole. He calls it the Holy Trinity because it's the three guys that are standing there that are going to talk to you the whole time.
Right.
But that's actually quite true. If we look at the history of corn snakes, and we actually really see the names that spent the most time in corn snake morphology and kind of creating what we have now, to some extent, their names almost wouldn't come up, right?
Right.
Because it was before then. Like you said, the Bechtels, the Applegates, the Loves, the Walter Smiths. There's a couple names that I'm remiss on.
We'll never remember all the names.
Can't remember all the names.
No.
But no, the Holy Trinity moniker came from the table of three guys that hung out together.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
John is reciting names as though he's reading scripture from the Bible because he remembers all that stuff. His memory is much better than ours. So this kind of goes into that what morphs are in, what is kind of hot in the hobby. But there's another thing. I have a question, Joe, and I know you know a little bit about marketing. We both work in very similar fields, but we kind of see the effects of marketing. A lot of sales, as we know, have been driven through morph marketing. King Snake isn't nearly what it was in the past, though we all love it. Fauna Classifieds has made a good comeback, but I'd say 80% of the sales of reptiles in North America are happening on morph market. Maybe 75%, maybe 25% shows, 75% morph market. I'm leaving out personal sales and online, because we don't talk about Facebook sales. We don't do that. Some people only do that. They post pictures on Facebook and then sell every single baby they've ever produced for. But yeah, so do you think advertising with social media helps with sales?
100%. It's not the end all be all, but if you look at how many names would, let me think how to phrase this. A lot of the people listening to us right now, or in the next few days, we're going to be listening to us anyway. They're deliberately seeking out stuff about snakes, and especially specifically corn snakes, if they're listening to us, or they're really fucking bored waiting for an actual THN episode, something like that. But people going into a reptile show, that's another tier of, they probably don't know any of us, any of the stuff that we're doing. They might follow some snake hashtags on Instagram, things like that. Or maybe they jumped on a corn snake group because one of their friends had a corn snake and they learned what its name was, and they go from there. Maybe somebody handed them the book at a pet store, like Kathy Love's book or Soderbergh's book. And, maybe they just happen to stumble on Sarah Moore doing, helping out with some Morph ID.
Yeah.
Things like that. And then, God forbid, they stumble on some of the corn snake groups and then just completely rot their brains in 10 minutes.
Fall into the epitome of hatred that is you not giving your snake 120 gallons as a hatchling.
Oh my God, some of these people. Just anyway, we can't bury ourselves in the Facebook.
No.
But now there's people that are scrolling through the little search function on Instagram, and you get to stumble on things. That's more eyes on it. And so, either deliberately or passively, social media has absolutely boosted sales. It has boosted awareness. If you were going on King Snake, you were looking for snakes ahead of time. You didn't just stumble on that.
You went there with intention.
Instagram, you can stumble on it. And, more eyes, more things like that. Facebook, I don't really spend any time on Facebook other than my grandmother refusing to acknowledge that she has my fucking phone number. Just text me. instead of Facebook messaging me. She refuses. And I don't get it. It's more complicated the way she does it. I don't understand. But yeah, then there's things like TikTok. Like, some of us have done some really great shit, get seen by so many more people in a much broader scope through things like that. I can see a lot of negatives in a lot of social media stuff, but I can also see a lot of positives. I try to stay on the positive side of things, and
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
So
it helps a lot.
should
Like,
we? Adversely to what you're saying, let's say Morph Market is the tool.
Right.
This is where snakes are bought and sold, reptiles are bought and sold. Now, that's not the only place, and I think my percentages were off maybe, but as you post things on Instagram, so I only have Instagram. I don't understand how the other things work, but I'm like a curmudgeon.
Right.
Should we be trying to advertise our Morph Market links? Hey, check out this for my availability. Check out this and have lists. It's kind of something that's kind of come apparent to me. I've always thought, and I kind of go with what my mentors are telling me, is post pictures of the animals you're producing. They will come to you.
Right.
They'll like what you're. Oh man, those babies look great. Are any of those available? Are we seeing a shift in that?
A little bit. You have to remember that my mentors, your mentors, John Cover Your Ears, are fucking old dudes now.
Oh, he can't hear us. You can say that.
Oh, that's really funny. So yeah, like, we're already.
He can only hear me.
That's pretty funny. I think that would still be the case if we were right next to each other, you deaf bastard. Yeah. So these guys didn't have this integrated into their lives to begin with.
No.
And it's not saying, it's nothing negative. You post,
No.
You show what you have, people come to you, and that's true. But Morph Market is another way to show what you have.
It's almost like a social media, yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost more of a guaranteed market because there's people that are already there looking for snakes. If I'm on Instagram, I'm trying to look at like some weird ass Japanese food and how can I figure out how to make this noodle dish.
Man, Joe, I didn't think food was the thing you were about to say.
Oh, I know. Nobody ever does.
That's not the word that I thought was coming next. I was like,
no. I want, like, straight up, I want pictures of Wolverine, weird food, and snakes. That's the only thing I'm on Instagram for. I don't.
Yeah.
But, everybody has their taste. I'm not going to argue with some of the things I happen to stumble on. They're still pretty good.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think having, on any platform that you have, if you're doing an Instagram, and this is coming up for me pretty soon. I'm going to actually start going and vending shows and doing things.
Yeah.
I'm trying to turn all the bad shit from the last couple months into as positive as possible and using it as a kick in the ass to get things started. So,
hell yeah.
On my, Reptile Instagram, when that gets up, there's going to be a little, you click this and here's the links. Here's Morph Market. Here's my website.
Yeah. Here's
wherever else, any other social media or any of that shit is going to be in there. So depending on how someone prefers to shop, I prefer, sending someone a direct message or calling them like, hey, I really like this snake. Send that fucker to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll still scroll on Morph Market every once in a while.
Yeah, we all do. We all
they're
will.
gorgeous animals there. But I feel like for what I'm looking for, a lot of times I'm more likely to stumble on it either by one of my buddies just straight up sending me a picture or, throwing it in one of the chat groups or something like that, or just because I'm so geared in and I still do things so much in person that it's going to be somebody that I already know or an offshoot of them that's going to show something. But that can't be how everyone does it because you're limiting your input into a market.
Sure.
That is already, it's very saturated. It's not as saturated as it could be. Morph Market's got under 3,000 corns listed right now, I think, when I checked earlier today.
I could check right now, but yeah, it's very close to there, yeah.
Yeah. But then you go and look at something like, ball pythons is probably closer to 20.
I think it's over 40,000. I believe it's quite high. It's quite high.
It's
ball
ridiculous.
pythons. But yeah, but also you're completely correct. You're constraining yourself. You're creating boxes for yourself. You're outsiding yourself by not creating that. Also, there's this huge little thing that happens with us. Well, maybe we want to stay in those boxes. Maybe not only do I not feel comfortable being on the other side of that wall, I don't want to. Maybe that's not the market I'm looking for, right? I'm not saying me personally, but just as a seller, maybe next year you have 3 to 5 clutches, and you say, I don't want to get on TikTok and post these snakes,
right,
and get people involved, and then now I've got 30 people messaging me, and I've got 18 snakes, and so there's a wax and wane, right? Mm-hmm. I'm never going to produce 500 snakes. It's just not something I can do in my life right now. Right. But at the same time, I might struggle to sell 100, right? Mm-hmm. Because I didn't take that step. I might be somebody in the future like John, who's sitting in front of me, who could hatch 500 snakes and somehow sell 1,000, right? It's right. Your name, your name carries a lot in this hobby. Your trust, your ethics carry a lot in a hobby. I found that for me, that kind of, there's a number in there. I don't know what the number is. Last year I produced over 200. This year I produced right at a little bit over 100. I sold all my snakes last year. I have maybe 5 or 6 from last year, but I got to keep them all. Got to keep them all anyways. And then this year, and I haven't ventured too far outside of my boxes.
Right.
But maybe it's that time that we do.
Yeah.
And so, but here we do have a couple other topics we want to hit, but I want to try one thing. I'm gonna unplug my mic and see what things do. Everybody, hold on to your butts. See. Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Does it sound good?
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, am I going?
John's
coming. Shit! Now we can hear John.
Worse.
Now John can hear me.
You got to come over here.
What's going on?
You got to bring your chair. Now you got to be on the podcast. You keep talking.
Right. The camera, Uncle John.
All Chris has is fucking White Claw to drink, just so y'all know.
I got at least one more. I got more beers in there.
Now, John, you take a slug of that whiskey and get on with your life.
Yeah, drink some whiskey.
I know that one's good.
That's still Austin.
It's still Austin. Still Austin whiskey. This is going to be the deleted show. All right.
Yeah, that works.
All right, next on the topic. I wanted to talk a little bit about this, and I know that we can't get too far into it. And I just kind of like a little corn snake news update. Wanted to give a huge shout out to Eric Westmoreland, who's a good friend of ours. I think he found something interesting has happened. We all know that he had gone through some trials and tribulations, based on genetics and what may or may not be in snakes, and had some legal troubles. We know this. He's posted it online. He's made this apparent for all of us. This is not. I don't think we're not breaking a case. We're not breaking a story. This is something you can go kind of read updates on. I'm really proud of Eric. I'm really proud of the work that Eric's done. I'm really proud of his strength and sticking with his guns. That's something to say for a full-time, red-blooded American busting his ass. Yep. And his cases are done, and it really, I think Eric did a damn good job of proving to the state that they didn't know what the fuck they were talking about.
Yeah.
And sadly, it really sounds like they were looking for a certain amount of money, and to slap him on the wrist about as hard as they could, and to smack him on the butt and tell him to pass to move along. So I just wanted to say that I'm real proud of him, and that's one thing we need to remember. State doesn't really care about science,
or city or county.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There's not a lot of. There wasn't a lot of foresight that went into it on their side, and one thing we need to be careful with in this hobby is got to remember that we need to take care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And then,
if you don't know, we live in a county or in a city that has a stupid city ordinance that says we can't have any boas, pythons, any of them, crocodilia, monitors, or venomous in the city limits. So we can't have a sand boa.
Well,
we can't have a ball python. It hasn't been enforced, but I'm afraid, I've had 30 years of my collection. I don't want to take it away just because I have one ball python. So I've never gotten into them just for that.
and the laws are wrote as loose as a fortune cookie, because it is it the species boa and the species python, which is the way it's written, or is it the family boa or the family python? Well, we don't need to get into that because I have some Liasis and Morelia. They know. But even then, I'm cautious of that, and I went out and I talked to local law enforcement, and I told them, hey, I want to do this, I want to have this. Is that okay?
Well, you just got his interpretation, so.
And I got his interpretation, and honestly, in the end, the answer was, if I don't see it, I don't care about it. So,
as long as no one complains.
No, as long as nobody complains.
Let's just touching on Eric again, really quick. The all the work that he did for, his own case.
Yeah.
In the end, it isn't just for his case. That is helping out everyone in the future, at least in his state, that is going to be butting up against anything like this. And because of the sheer amount of work that he put in, and then everybody helping him out. I don't remember. I think somebody was helping him out with genetics work.
Yeah.
Different studies, the amount of research he did, Donovan doing a print for him, all of these things, like so many people helping out. And all of their work can't be discounted either, because it's all cumulative and it all helps, hopefully it helps Eric out.
Because quite a few
Eric
people
to be succeeding.
People send in sheds from scaleless animals. I myself sent in some sheds from different Emryi groups.
Mm-hmm.
We a lot of people pitched in to help. I believe Dr. Warren Booth was the person that helped him with the scientific genetic testing on that. But he set a precedence. He set a precedence to the state of Illinois that if this happens again, we're going to stand up. We're going to fight for what we think is right, and we're going to show you why you're wrong. And he was right. He was right. Yeah. He was completely correct. Did he still have to suffer the repercussions of that? Yes, but that's a lot of times when you stand up for what you believe in and what you know is right, you do suffer the repercussions. You do end up getting that kickback.
I got a question here, and Eric can answer it. I know he's on the chat. Did Dr. Booth prove that there is no Emryi or no Western rat snake in scaleless corns?
I actually have the answer because I have the paper.
Said no, there wasn't.
It was less than a 0.005%, and
that was the animal he tested. Then, the whole. I'm not on one side or the other. I'm a friend with Eric. I like Eric a lot. I'm just saying that the whole story of the scaleless corn snake was it popped out of Emryi or Western rat snakes, right?
Correct. So it was overseas. They had root beer corns. And they were breeding root beer corns back together, and that's where the original scaleless.
Emryi.
There was never a scaleless Emryi.
I know.
Yeah. So,
but there's scaleless Texas rats found.
Correct. Now that's a totally different.
I know.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah, but there's also
correct.
Like there are very distinctly, scaleless. It's a rat corn hybrid, but that doesn't mean that that's where that line comes from. That's just something else that somebody did.
Also true, and even if the dilution. And I believe this was in Warren Booth's paper, the dilution of breeding would not have gotten you to the continuance of residual Emryi that's in there.
It would have took them 35 generations, and we only been doing it 2 or 3.
Yeah, right. And so the thought is that this anomaly may have popped up more than once, and that the original animals that produced it were actually more genetically corn snake. But if you take a corn snake from the wild and an Emryi from the wild, they share an amount of genetic similarity.
Well, we're from South Texas. We think Emryi are corn snakes. So
there are corn snakes, and they are right.
They just don't have that ontogenesis that corn snakes go through.
Yeah, but also look back, John. You may know more better than me. 25, 30 years ago, Pantherophis guttatus Emryi.
Yep.
Right? And Pantherophis guttatus slowinskii and Pantherophis guttatus razale and guttatus guttatus. Oh, sorry. This was all off. Sorry, it was all off.
Yeah, Laffy back there.
But it was Guttatus Rosale, Guttatus Slowinskii, Guttatus Emerii, and
Slowinskii didn't come around until the late '90s, early 2000s, and Hillis did good work. David Hillis, who was the geneticist on the Emerii paper, calling Slowinskii Emerii because they're right in between. So a lowland snake is going to integrate with other lowland snakes, and they're right where where Emerii and Guttata meet.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So
and so it's kind of this weird anomaly where again we've called them Ford Mustangs and Ford Explorers, and we've drawn these lines and we've created these delineations that don't exist in the wild.
they're just boxes for us to
Yeah.
specify.
But is it okay for us to legally prosecute somebody
No.
because of a box, right? And it's
Because of a name and no understanding of what the actual
Horrible.
genetics and evidence would be.
So Eric is saying in the chat that the first pairing of the first scaleless corn was a Virginia locality, a corn to an Emerii, and that's where the first scaleless came out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So kind of a crazy thing, but that's a great point and a great ideology to kind of look up. Somebody say, don't back
So
down.
if they were both bred, they were both het for scaleless. So who knows?
But there was only one. It's an anomaly. I don't know.
So the
no.
albino gray band's an anomaly too, but we know it's not real.
We don't talk about albino gray bands on this
Okay,
podcast,
sorry.
John.
Ugh,
Albino
hybrid
gray.
garbage.
No, there was one hatch from a leucistic line, and he said a leucistic by hypo by anary het through the first albino. I said that ain't how genetics works, but okay.
No, if you just add everything together, you get a different color. It's like mixing paint, right?
And then in your first clutch, you get albinos, albino leucistic, albino hypos. It just all comes out in the first clutch. That's how albinos work in the wild.
He only got one albino, and the rest were all leucistic and het leucistic.
No, he made albino leucistics.
How can you tell?
Because they got red eyes, John.
Oh yeah.
He's new to the hobby, guys.
I'm just
He's
saying
not a
now
morph
John
guy.
gets to learn from us. That's pretty bad.
We all are morph guys, you
We're
know.
morph guys.
I'm a Mexican king snake guy. There's a few morphs, but that's about it.
So I'm going to ask, so, you know, we kind of ask this every episode. Joe, what are you excited about in corn snakes right now?
Outside of what I'm going to be doing this upcoming season, I'm excited, like we were talking about earlier, people getting into locality.
Yeah.
Especially in corn snake, because there is a variety. You get some like crazy Keys corns, you know, some of the North Carolina, South Carolina, up into Virginia. Yeah, like there's a bunch of stuff that you can, there's just so many different
phenotypes,
just naturally occurring phenotypes. And that's discounting you know, the Red Zeps and the Devil's Garden. Like those are cool on their own, but just different phenotypes not caused by a genetic mutation, just by natural selection for the area that they are.
Line bred by Mother Nature.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a pair of North Carolina foothills from Chris Montross that didn't breed this year. I thought they would, but we're gonna brewmate them this year and see if they go next season. I'm excited about them. They're badass.
I'm also excited to see what everybody's Ladies Island clutches look like. You know, I've got F1s that are going to go this year.
Oh, it's badass.
I don't know if Jake's are ready, but and then just seeing, you know, more of what Carol's producing for the weirdo stuff and finding, you know, delving deeper into what the genetics actually are, because now we're getting het cinder in some of them. They're definitely het AML, all this stuff.
Yeah. Those AML weirdos are
really interesting.
Really interesting.
Yeah, I kind of kicking myself a little bit.
John is asking about the weirdo gene. Saying we're live.
So
the weirdo gene.
It's not necessarily a gene. It's that we know of yet. It is looks like a really nice line bred Miami.
I've seen Carol's pictures everywhere. I've known Carol for years.
Yeah,
I didn't know what the gene was.
So the weirdo line is a corn snake line that is kind of like line bred hypo E. It's a huge wash on the reds. It creates a more of like a taupe pink color. But as far as the original line new, there's no cinder, which is kind of the corn snake hypo E.
There's no homozygous cinder. It looks like
Yeah,
head cinder in there now.
Again, it would be het cinder, but even then,
a visual hit.
it's a visual het. I can't believe it. It's a really neat grouping of. So now I've got to look up a picture.
The saddle colors fading out is just, it's getting more interesting. Some of the other guys, theirs are fading out a lot faster than mine are. I don't know if it's slow.
So her adults, are they like white saddled almost?
Mm-hmm.
No, if you look at like a, you know how Ultramel will get that sort of fading in the head? So it's sort of like that on the saddle, but instead of, picture, okay, here's your gray base, and you slap the red saddle on top of it. It looks like you're wiping the red off. And so it's just leaving that gray base color underneath it. So it's fading back into its base. So the ground color
is showing through the saddle color.
Mm-hmm. And the saddle color is just fading away. And eventually on the female, the dam of the entire group, it's got the black border and then a little line of the red touching that black border. Yep. And then in between, it's just back. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Weird.
It's weirdo. It's a weirdo. It's an interesting line, and she's done her due diligence with it. And
I'm messing with the same thing with king snakes, but
Hypo E Max does a very similar thing. And the other thing is, when they hatch out, a lot of times they look kind of phenotypically like a Miami. Yeah, they definitely have that Miami appearance. They have that light gray
and red.
Yeah, they kind of have a gray and red.
Mine looked like a Miami Motley.
Yeah.
And just every shed, I get a little bit less red, Still got sort of the reddish brown eyes. It's been fun so far. I'm really looking forward to what.
So just corn snakes, do the eyes match the saddle color?
No, they match the ground color.
Yeah.
Usually,
same thing with Leonis. I was just asking.
Yeah.
It's more of a ground color to the exception of because saddle color. I mean, then you have like yellow eyes.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
We have red eye corns.
They're albino. I just learned that.
He's new.
I've got some that are. I've got one that's got heterochromia. So I've got one ruby pupil, one black pupil, and then I don't remember which one of the eyes, but it's also it's pied blood red.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's badass.
So I remember when blood reds first came out with Kathy Love years ago. Mm-hmm. It was one of my favorite corns ever. I never noticed their eyes, but if yours is pied and blood red and one's ruby and one's black, that's pretty cool.
So the neat thing about the pied gene is it's definitely a recessive trait, right? They've proven it that it's
white-sided.
White-sided to some extent, but the interesting thing about the pied gene is it's only visible if it has if it's homozygous diffused, which we call blood red.
Yep.
So you have to have homozygous blood red to see pied. So even if you had a homozygous pied, but it was not homozygous diffused at the same time, you would not see any of the pied. It's kind of a neat weird thing that happens in the corns. And not a lot of people know that. A lot of people
I didn't know that. I thought it was this heterozygous pied or one-sided pied.
Has to have diffused to be able to see it. You can't.
So diffused came around way before than we thought. Then.
Well, diffused just is what they used to call blood red. Now it just has a true
now we
name.
say diffused. Okay.
Yeah, because they're expecting that blood red back then was diffused and mask combined, and it just hadn't been separated yet.
Yeah.
And now you can get either or both. But I'm interested. I'm thinking the heterochromia.
That's the head pattern, right?
Yes. But also does belly scale pattern and also kind of matches diffused in that it creates a little bit more
diffusion
wash out on the sides. Yeah.
So a diffused mask is like a killer blood red. The combo of the two. The problem is when you get mask out of diffused, and it just fucks everything up because it's so variable.
Yeah, I'm not putting any of my diffuse mask stuff. Will not go to anything else at this point, just because I don't want to have to sit there and like, what the fuck are you?
I love
Don't
the
wanna deal
chaos.
with that.
I put mask. I love masking everything.
For
I just
sure.
like mask the world.
And then I get all of it because you can't figure it out.
Motherfucker, I found out most of my stuff, it turns out, is buff. And it turns out that buff is even harder to figure out because you need like 12 sheds for it to actually start turning yellow. So that's.
Dude, I swear that the Anery stripe that you sent me has to have some buff in it. That thing's got a yellow belly halfway down its body.
Yeah, it's part of the yellowhead.
Ridiculous.
And so that snake, I believe, is clutch mates with the snow motley, which may not be showing any yellow at all, which means it didn't get the buff gene.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go back and look at it because that. Oh, also that you sent me an Ultramel.
Yeah, Ultramels. Dude, those Ultramels are crispy, dude.
That thing is a dick.
I don't know why, and I've sent Justin some too. My Ultramels are complete assholes. They're complete assholes.
But you also sent me an Ultramel Tessera.
Yeah, because you don't like Ultramel and you don't like Tessera.
Biggest sweetheart in my collection.
Really? Well, there
She's incredible. But yeah, the not Tessera Ultramel, holy shit. I won't even hand that one to my kid.
That's hilarious.
I pull it out laughing. That one currently is named Stop Fucking Biting Me. Yeah.
This one's named Sabretooth because it's an asshole in every situation. Okay. I have some things I'm excited about in corn snakes.
Yeah,
One of the things that I am very excited about in corn snakes, and I don't want this to sound derogatory, it might, is there's been a huge slowing point in the palmetto craze. I love palmettos the way they look. I hate the fact that there's the deleterious genetics that cause the bug eye. We see this in a lot of leucistic animals. But I'm so glad that the palmetto pump has stopped.
Because you mix it with all these other genes and it still looks very similar to
looks the same.
Arizona's palmetto.
Yeah, there's some Anery palmettos, there's some albino palmettos, there's some caramel palmettos, that look amazing. But what I'm excited about is the stuff that's really going nuts now is this Miami lineage stuff, the stuff JT's working with, this old Walter Smith honey line, the zombie stuff is going crazy. The butters, dude, who even talks about butters and sulfurs anymore? This was like peak 2013 corn snake. And now when you see butters and sulfurs, it's like, oh my God, I forgot we can make these things yellow again, right?
Hopeful for sulfurs.
Soderbergh's first one back in like 03, 02.
First what?
Butter.
First butter. Okay.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Dude, they're badass.
And for two different shades of yellow-ish.
Yeah. You have like
gray and yellow.
Yeah, you have grays, you have yellows, and you have this kind of like burnt umber yellow kind of going on in there. But where did those go? And what's funny is now I see the butters, the butter stripes, the butter motleys, the butter tesseras are going crazy. This is albino caramel. Hell yeah, right? That's the stuff we need. We need to remember these things exist. Look at Castagna. I get messages still about Castagnas because Justin went crazy on him, and I like to think he could sway a market a little bit.
Bears, yeah.
Yeah, Justin single-handedly.
They're not better than Alterna.
But yeah, we had this huge swing with Castagna. Now Castagna doesn't, for in my eyes, is what people are looking for. That whole kind of toffee taupe kind of color, and then you mix it with albino, you get your mandarins. You mix it with hair, you get these really interesting, almost ghost-looking things. You mix it with sun-kissed, and you get this bombastic-looking animal. Hypo, and you get a Castagna is like the greatest multiplier in corn snakes right now, and there's so much more we get to do with it. Look at Eric Westmoreland. Look at the hets that he made. He made some hets that damn near look like old school classic Mex that came out because they're het for 4 or 5 different things, and they have Castagna in them. And for some reason, just the het of this makes the classic version of the corn snake just look.
I got a quick little story if you want to hear it.
Yeah, we like stories, John.
So I met Bob Applegate in 2005. I went to Daytona during a hurricane. It was awesome. And Bob Applegate and me sat down at the bar and talked all night. And he quit breeding Mex because there were newbies that kept coming to his table and said, those are the best Mex-Mex I've ever seen. And he goes, they were talking about my Miami corn.
Best Miami corn
Oh,
snake.
shit.
Oh, the best Mex-Mex there. I mean, Miami corns they ever seen. And they were talking about his Mex-Mex. I'm sorry. That was backwards. Coincidentally, I got Mex-Mex that were from him that started the Hypo-E line.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Hypo Mex-Mex.
But go ahead.
That's pretty
Miami
good.
corns do look like Mex-Mex.
They do.
Gray with red saddles.
That zombie stuff is awesome, isn't it?
Carol's are awesome.
Carol's real nice. Well, I have a couple questions that were posted to us. I'm going to take a quick break real quick. John, you and Joe chat for a second. I'll be right back.
Joe, do you breed anything else besides corns?
So, corns right now is the main focus. I was doing crested geckos for a little while, and fuck that. I don't need to do those anymore.
Well, snakes are the easiest reptile to keep. Slide, drop.
Yeah. And that's, I started with corns when I was 5 or 6 years old, somewhere around there. I've got a pair of gray bands that are grown up. I've still got a few years on them. It's from the 3 Mile West.
From
Sanderson.
Chris.
Yeah, I've got the ones from Chris from the Dark Knight Project.
Yeah.
And then hopefully this year I'll be getting some rhino rats.
Awesome.
And then
eventually, I like Glenn's Brooks rhino rats. His pictures are awesome.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun to see at shows too because his table, he's got like his.
I met him for the first time this year in Daytona.
Okay. He's at almost every show I go to here. I didn't actually meet him until Daytona this year.
Where do you live at?
California? I live in California, yeah.
Okay.
I see him all the time. I've never bothered to introduce myself. I finally talked to him this year.
He's a great guy. He's a pastor too. He's cool.
Yeah. And then hopefully this year I'll find a male Nova Guinea to go with my girl. For
a male what?
A male Nova Guinea carpet python, which technically got classified as Harrisoni, but I refuse to acknowledge it. Just because I'm weird and I want to keep it just that small little line.
Novas.
Yeah.
I found out that their mouths are purple the other day when I was going I was going to the top rack to feed one, and I didn't realize their mouths were that purple until it decided that I was food. It didn't get me, but goddamn, that's scary.
That's
I had a 6 foot Florida python. It was hypo.
Florida python.
I mean, a Florida king. It was hypo. I got it in like 98, 99. One of my first snakes I ever got. And when he got up to 6 foot, they would make me scream like a girl. Every time I slid out the cage, it went straight for my face. And I was, ah!
Yeah, I'm happy that my carpet doesn't do that, but she's still the only tub I open with a hook. Just because if she's smelling the mouse, she comes out hot. But if it's not feeding day, she's a puppy. She just comes out. But I'm being super picky about the male because I'd like to line breed them instead of just going for it. I usually, for whatever snakes I'm doing, I'll usually pick out a trait and that's what I'll end up focusing on.
Yeah.
And just try and emphasize that over anything else. For this,
so the first snakes you ever had were corn snakes?
Yeah. Yeah, I started my
own.
Emory
Milmorum.
Nice.
Yeah. I lived on 100 acres and I caught hundreds of them.
Nice.
Well, we did have a couple of questions, and this is something I think we're going to try to do, maybe with a little bit more premonition, and we'll ask a little bit earlier than the day of the podcast.
An hour before we go on.
And maybe we'll talk about something before we answer these questions. The future of CornStars. So the future of CornStars, this is a show we're going to keep doing. It is going to be on and off. I've kind of talked about in previous episodes about how it's tough to find guests. I don't think that's an honest answer. It's not tough to find guests. I believe that it's difficult occasionally to find guests that are going to maybe tell us a different story or challenge possibly what we're talking about. There are some people in this hobby that we do still want to have on, and they're a little bit difficult to get a hold of. John could probably text them right now, and they'd just be on the show. But it's technology. Technology corn snakes are not a new thing, and a lot of the work that was done with them was done in the last 20 or 30 years, maybe even 40 years, and trying to get some of these people on has been tough. There are some amazing new breeders out there, and there are some absolute shining stars in this hobby for corn snakes. And one thing we don't want to do is keep regurgitating the same content.
Yeah, like at the beginning of this, I asked Chris, haven't y'all said everything there is to say about corn snakes already? But I was just joking.
Yeah.
I mean, there's new people like Sarah. Have you had Sarah on?
She's been on twice, yeah.
Okay.
You got to hear her in person at
Colubrifest.
Yeah. Wonderful young lady doing so much work when it comes to telling the story of these morphs and the story of the lineages of the localities. And we're happy to have people like that in the hobby. But we want to hear different origin stories maybe. And I think having Joe on is and again, not bringing anything to Justin. Justin has a lot on his plate. Justin's doing a lot of podcasts. This is why we started doing King Snake Chronicles, and we have more lined up. John's going to be on again here in probably the next couple of weeks. We're going to do a Mex episode.
Nice.
We have somebody lined up, hopefully for a Caligaster episode. That'll
Awesome.
be cool.
Never had one.
Never had a Caligaster.
I'm excited for more of the King Snake Chronicles. Like, Harry's voice just makes me smile.
I love Harry so much.
I love him so much.
I love his questions.
Yeah.
What the fuck is a Mex?
But is Corn Snakes done? No. And Joe's going to be probably helping me with it, going to be co-hosting it with me. And we're going to probably have some guests, and we're going to let Justin continue to do what he's doing because he's doing a damn fine job with it. So we want to diversify those guests. We are actually talking to a couple people internationally. Turns out fucking time is like this weird compendium that we have to battle. But we do have a couple of overseas guests that we're going to try to have on, and me and Joe will probably have to facilitate their schedules uniquely. And that might present a problem, but this is not something we're going to be doing weekly, and this may not be something that we get out monthly, but we're going to try. And maybe we're going to try to do a little bit more live. We enjoy the live platform.
Yep.
But yeah, again, Joe, I'm so stoked that you came on and we're willing to co-host with me. And I think, hopefully we can take a little bit off of Justin's shoulders. It's going to be a good thing. And we want to keep doing this. So also my work schedule is dog shit. So it is specifically Splish Splash Extra Trash. And Joe, I don't think you're the exact easiest life position right now to be doing a bunch of episodes, but we're going to figure it out, baby. You know what I mean? Between the three of us.
Yeah, as many as we can, because this show definitely needs to happen regularly.
Yeah. I was really surprised at the amount of people that reached out and wanted more of this show and wanted to hear more. We always hear that everybody's asking where the next ChondroCast is, when the next ChondroCast is. But I didn't have one or two people. I had 10, 12, 20 people reaching out. So happy to be doing it. And so anyways.
I'm still dead set on being the last ChondroCast guest. I'm going to borrow someone's. I'm going to borrow a chondro just so I can do it one time because I need to hit that. I need every notch in the belt for the network.
What do you not? So get a chondro. I'm going to get a chondro, right? Why not? You want a great tree python? Okay, so I had Manuel Salazar, who's a great friend of mine, been a buddy for years, good friend of John Soderbergh's. He lives in California, SoCal. He asked us a question. He said, "What is your most anticipated pairing or pairings for next spring?" Joe, you wanna kick that off for us?
My most anticipated is My Lady's Island. Like, going back to locality stuff, I started with a normal, and I'm really, really excited to
What did he call it? What was the name?
Ladies Island.
So
Ladies. Oh yeah, okay.
So that's from the Beaufort, South Carolina.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to do that because my originals were probably actual Okati line when I was just a little kid. But I don't have that was 35 years ago. I don't have that snake anymore. So I want to make more of these babies. I can't wait to see what they look like when they hatch.
They're really cool.
Do they have a buckskin ground color?
A little bit, yeah. One of mine is a little bit lighter. But yeah, I've got a really nice kind of darker mahogany color on one of them, and then a little bit lighter. Yeah, still kind of like almost buckskin, but a little bit lighter on the ground color.
With my pair, what I like to look at them and think is this is what Okeetees look like before people line bred them.
Yep.
Right? They have that.
Our buddy Chris Montross has some of them, right? The North Carolina, South Carolina ones.
He has the North Carolina foothills. I don't think he has anything from South Carolina.
Okay.
The South Carolina stuff came from Justin. That's actually where he lives.
Oh yeah.
I have the Tessera project that we did. So we took a Tessera and paired it into a wild-caught Ladies Island. So I have a
Trying to get a
just to get that weird. That snake is insane. It's insane because Tessera is co-dominant. So we got first.
Oh, you
gen.
already produced.
We already have Tessera Lady Island. So I have a true F1 Lady Island that's unrelated to my Tessera, and then I have the Tessera to F1.
Does it have the mahogany color?
It does. It's badass. And the thing that was really weird about the Tesseras going to wild-caught snakes, we get a lot of Tesseras in the hobby. So this is kind of a neat thing that we can talk about. So Tessera is extremely common. It's a co-dominant trait. It's the only co-dominant trait that we have. That's completely true and completely untrue when you think about co-dominance, because Mask is also co-dominant. Buff is also co-dominant. Red Factor is also co-dominant. So we have a whole bunch of co-dominants, I guess.
Ultramel.
Ultramel is Lilac. That is two recessives that are Lilac.
Albino and Ultramel.
But they have to have the two recessive genes. So when you take a Tessera and breed it to literally any other damn corn snake on the planet, you get a pretty stereotypical Tessera snake. When you take a Tessera and breed it to a wild-caught corn snake, you get some of the craziest looking Tesseras I've ever seen in my life. Broken pattern.
New blood.
It's new blood. It's weird.
Not from the pet store, but from the wild.
Yeah, it's this weird diffusion. It gets these odd speckling on the sides. It really blows it up. And we've taken Okeetees and Miamis that have been line bred that have no heads and put them into Tessera, and you get a pretty stereotypical Tessera pattern, albeit maybe you get some thicker borders and some of those traits, those color traits. This was
different,
oddball, next level stuff. It looks crazy.
You're combining things instead of something that's been selectively bred for 20, 30 years to have this very distinct fit into this mold of what this name means.
Yeah.
Now you get to just start over like, this is just wild. Now you're combining. Now you get to selectively breed.
Yeah. And you know what?
Figure out a trait.
Taking that Tessera into that wild-caught Ladies Island put the nail in the coffin for me as far as thinking that it's the Newport gene from California king snakes. No, because if you take a Newport California king snake and breed it to a banded California king snake, you'd get aberrants, and then you'd also always have a typical tail pattern
with color on top or black on top.
Black on top, which would be for corn snakes would be saddle color on top, correct? Mm-hmm. You don't get that at all because the whole thing is diffused and blown out and weird looking, and you would never get that.
So, I got a buddy of mine, Jerry Hartley, that's doing that with Pitchophis. He's asked me for many wild-caught Pitchophis. I sent him like 7.
Yeah.
And he's trying to breed these old school morphs into this new line.
Yeah.
Which will give them different looks because there's different patterns and different saddle sizes, stuff like that. So that's a cool idea to breed a 20, 30-year-old mutation to a wild-caught.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You kind of get to start over with it.
Yeah, and you get to start over that first generation. And then now we get to take that and pair it back into the Ladies Island, and who the hell knows what we're going to keep making. And you keep the best ones, you keep going, and you kind of get a unique thing. Well, we're still asking, John, what's your most anticipated pairing or pairings for next spring? You're on the show now.
Well, I got 2. I got a brand new project from Matt Most, if y'all know Matt Most. Matt Most is probably the most successful Asian king breeder there is.
Everybody knows Matt Most.
Okay. Well, I know him very well. So he sent me some Lycodon now. Lycodon rufosinatum, which are the red-banded Asian king snakes. Not rat snakes, Asian king snakes. So that's pretty fun for me.
Yeah.
But my most anticipated is a new true blue black phase male San Luis Potosi king snake I'm breeding through my Hypo-E Loco line female.
Those local lines.
So Hypo-E is a strange gene because Hypo-E by Hypo-E does not produce all Hypo-E's. Hypo-E by Hypo-E will probably produce 40-50% Hypo-E's. If you breed black phase to Hypo-E, 50% will be Hypo-E. Classic to Hypo-E, wild caught looking to Hypo-E, 0 Hypo-E's. Granite to Hypo-E, 0 Hypo-E's. So it's allelic with the black line, but we don't know what the what do you call it? We don't know how to determine what the clutch will be. So
it doesn't follow standard Mendelian genetics.
Yeah, it's not Mendelian at all.
Right.
It's a simple recessive. It's somewhat codominant. One guy bred a Hypo-E to a Pyro years ago, and it produced a Hypo-E Pyro.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of badass. Well, it's also kind of not badass.
It's kind of neat because he proved codominance, and he thought it was codominant. But if codominant needs a super form, which me and Chris have been talking about for years, some of the het Hypo-E's are cherry red instead of brick red or fire engine red.
Yeah.
And we think that might be the codominant
to dominant form.
Yeah, and the very super form is Hypo-E with pink saddles. So
the ideology of the super form with Tessera is that if you have a super Tessera, it produces all Tesseras. But if you have a co-dominant first one gene Tessera, it produces half Tessera. But that math doesn't necessarily work out. And when you breed Tessera to Tessera, you get 25% not Tessera. So it almost...
How is that if it's co-dominant?
Because they're not super forms. But I would assume if you took a super form to genetics. We're also
really iffy.
Not all scientists. And you know what's great is we had Travis Wyman on this show to explain this, and he did a great job of explaining how
he told me. I listened to that.
The genetic compounds work and how that we look at it too simply.
There's characteristics that are all not heterozygous, but maybe dominant.
Yeah.
Like I got a snake that has a skull pattern on his head. All the babies are going to have it.
Polygenics can also pass on. And there's this weird thing where we think we have it solved because once again we're putting boundaries and putting things in boxes, and it's not always
we know
that simple.
Pigment mutations. We don't know anything about pattern mutations as much as Tessera or something like that. But
a lot of it is the hobby oversimplifies to: is it recessive? Is it incomplete dominant? And that's all they'll pay attention to.
Yeah.
Without realizing that some things, it's not just one line in its structure, and so some things allelic. Cool, that's one spot. But not everything is going to work that way. Some things you're going to have 2-3 copies or 2-3 different switches that get flipped in order for that to happen.
Oh, you remember when sorry. Remember when I said earlier about line bred by Mother Nature?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have something that we've been doing for 30 years in the hobby, right?
Yeah.
And then you breed to something else and it produces something cool and we call it co-dominant, that ain't always true. Breed it to a wild caught like you did, and it may not happen.
No.
So we have the same thing in king snakes where we think, let's say granite Mex-Mex. It acts co-dominant. If you breed an ultra granite that's been bred for 5 generations now to a classic, it's going to produce one ultra granite at least, and then all the way down to it looks like a normal.
Yeah.
But if you breed ultra granite to ultra granite, it'll produce half ultra granite,
but still some
all array of different
regular granites.
All array of different. So it's all what generation are we on, and how does that affect
how
the
saturated
babies?
and compounded are those genes?
Yeah.
So, anyways, things that I'm excited about for next season, next spring.
Gurai.
Nah, fuck Gurai. I got them, but I ain't breeding them, dude. Oh man, Gurai takes so goddamn long to get big.
Tell us about the too many snakes you're going to produce next year.
I'm not. I'm still keeping it small. So next year I'm going to hit pretty hard on trying to get leucistic Florida pines. Brew Maiden and Paired Mine this year didn't get any locks.
Leucistic?
No, they're I have paired visual leucistics. You played with them.
Oh.
Yeah, you Brew Maided them.
Oh, I thought you meant leucistic black pines. Sorry.
No. Leucistic Florida pines. I really, really, really want them to breed.
That you meant pied. Never mind. Go ahead.
No pied black pines here yet. Soon, maybe. I'm really excited to try to pair them again. Pine snakes are weird. They don't breed at 3 years. They breed at 4 years if you're lucky. Sometimes they breed at 5. This is across the board with all pine snakes. I don't care how big they are at 2 years old. They breed at 4 or 5, sometimes 6 years old. And I've kind of seen that in my collection. I've had breeder size at 3 years old, and they didn't breed, and then they bred at 4, or they didn't breed at 5.
I'm most excited about your Baja
Vertebralis again.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another thing. If I produce vertebralis again, I feel like if I can produce them 3 years in a row, I will have figured it out. I truly believe that the way to breed them easily for us, because of our humidity, is cohab them. Every time I've seen them locked, it was during a rainstorm or a thunderstorm.
After brumation.
After brumation, of course, yeah. And they need cold, 50 degrees, 3 months, 4 months. You keep them cold for a long time. Yeah, you're welcome. I am very, very, very excited I have a beautiful pair of 277 Alterna that I am so excited about. They're 4 years old this year, and I'm going to try to pair them next season. But as far as corn snakes go, I am still so.
Butter.
I have no butters.
The yellow saddle one.
My yellowheads one. Yeah. So I'm so excited. They are buff, anery, stripe, ultramel, albino, motley combos. So all my yellowhead project, I'm doing that again. God, I love that project. It is my passion project with corns. Then I have a pair of buckskin Okeetees from Tony D that I am so excited to pair next year. I got those from Jake. They were outcrossed, so they have.
Joe, do you believe Okeetee and buckskin Okeetee are probably the best looking snakes in the United States?
I mean, it's
bright orange, bright red.
It's hard to beat an Okeetee corn snake.
United States?
Yeah, it's been said before.
No.
What's your favorite looking snake in the whole United States?
San Francisco garter snake.
Oh man, you're right.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
How about a speckled racer from
racers
South Texas?
From South Texas.
Oh, also a pink coach whip. Pretty hard to beat that.
From West Texas, yeah.
And the ringneck snakes we get around here.
Yeah.
With the olive green, like I can't. You can't go.
Their
wrong.
bellies are cooler.
What about those? What about those blue garters over there in Florida? Those are badass, dude.
Puget Sound garters
Puget
are
Sound
blue
garters.
and black.
The blue and black Puget Sound.
Yeah.
What's this, John? We're not talking about those right now.
Well, that's what's the favorite snake there is.
No, what's the most beautiful snake in North America? Now we're just talking
San Francisco garter.
The best corn snake is Okeetee or Miami. I mean, I'm more of a Miami guy because I love silver and red.
Yeah.
But Okeetees are awesome.
I
say Okeetee because that's how the Indian said it. He says Okeetee.
Like everybody else says it.
Yeah.
I switch back and forth because I just grew up not hearing it said out loud until I was about 30 years old.
You're right. Me too.
Yeah.
Now I can't stop thinking about the prettiest snake in North America.
It's an indigo.
It's a San Francisco garter. You're not going to meet.
San Francisco garters are badass, man.
Alterna are awesome.
Alterna are badass.
They're good.
San Francisco garters, though.
Yeah, blue stripe, red.
About
those Puget Sound
15
garters. God, are they just
the rainbow
15, 20
colored,
minutes from my house is one of their habitats.
The rainbow colored speckled racers that we have in South Texas.
Those are amazing. Those are amazing. The lyre snakes from West Texas are just so cool looking.
Mex-Mex.
What about your Tarahumara Kings? Those are cool.
Yeah,
Those
are his tricolors. Milk snakes.
What about rosy boas? Are we just sitting here? They don't exist? No.
I like the blue and gray ones from Mexico.
Yeah. No, y'all are fired. No.
No rosy boas.
I'm so biased against rosy boas. Fuck those.
What about rubber boas?
Hey, Jeff actually made a good point. God damn, what about Holbrook Eye?
Holbrook Eye, gorgeous.
Real pretty Holbrook
There's
Eye.
some ugly ones, like some in Louisiana, they're just black and white. But the ones in southwestern Louisiana, all the way to Galveston, have that orange yellow to them. They're nice.
Those Bolivar County, Galveston ones that what you call it, Harry has.
Yeah.
Got it, the color of your hat. Yeah.
Yeah. They're born with a red belly.
Yeah.
And that red turns to orange on the belly, but their speckles are like orange yellow.
What about some of those cool Utah milks?
There's some Holbrook Eye in Kansas too that have this awesome checkerboard pattern.
Yeah,
that's badass. But they have some Splendida influence. Which ones?
The Utah milks and pale milks that have that yellow and red with the black. It's tricolor though.
Yeah, tricolor.
What about a goddamn nice looking crispy northern pine? That's
Only
cool.
only the white ones, not the pink ones.
Why not the pink ones? Joe,
There's other pink snakes that are.
There's other
Yeah,
pink snakes.
corn snake. Pink corn snakes are cooler.
Mhm.
You got those. Hey, Tyson Dallas, great comment. What about rubber boas? That's a cool ass
I said
snake.
that too.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a cool snake.
Some people think this looks like a turd, so
What if you like turds?
Then that's the snake.
I
for
found
you.
the rubber
It straight
boa
up looks like a turd.
I worked up in Northern California once and found a rubber boa.
What about mud snakes?
Mud snakes.
Mud snakes?
Mud snakes would be the coolest snake there is if it would eat rats. It would
Yeah.
be the hobby killer
Yeah.
if it ate rats.
Great size, great looking snake.
They're black snakes that have red up the sides and red across the belly.
They have a radio force.
And the rainbow snakes, the other Francias, other than mud snakes, are awesome too.
Solid surface.
But they eat sirens only.
What about the wandering garter snake? Those are really pretty.
Are those the giant garter snakes
Yeah.
in California?
The bay ones. They're cool.
Yeah. It is.
Okay.
Does someone say that? I'm sorry.
Yes. That was
They're huge. That's cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So last question, as far as we did get two questions, and this corn snakes. We're gonna stay on corn snakes this time. Nisarg asked, what locality corn snakes do you think are underrated and you would like to see more of? I have an answer.
North Carolina, South Carolina.
I was about to say, and I'm gonna go first.
Yep.
I have some North Carolina foothills red rats from Chris Montross, and I think that is one of the neatest looking snakes. It goes through this really interesting ontogenic change that, as an adult, in the gray, it has a very Miami look, but in the gray, it has this neat orange flecking as the snake flexes. That this little orange pips kind of stick out
In
gray.
between the scales?
In between the scales, yeah, it's really cool.
Sort of like a Baird's.
Kind of like
a
a bear.
bear's.
They
Yeah.
they are probably the most reminiscent of the Baird Eye complex. I say complex, but the Baird Eyes. Those are the South Mountain corns. One of the neatest things about them is they're small as adults, and mine are 5 years old now, and they haven't bred yet.
About 3 foot.
They're about 3 foot. They're about 3 foot,
Like a Leonis.
and they're thick. They're a thick corn snake and a small length. Joe, any localities that you
Keys corns, I think, are pretty underrated. They get kind of washed out on their own. They've got sort of
Yeah.
a lighter background color. I really like them. And then, South Carolina, I've got two Justin's horn. Like, those snakes are gorgeous.
The Ladies Islands are badass, man.
And then stuff that I'm still kicking myself. I didn't get around to getting to Virginia like I wanted to. But where my family was based in, and I'm not going to say it because I don't want anybody to go and get them, where they were based in Virginia, I was supposed to go out and see if I could find some in my grandfather's backyard and just have my own specific Virginia line of these snakes. Yeah. It's kind of iffy on whether or not it was going to be legal to collect, but nobody was going to catch me, so it probably would have been okay. But I unfortunately never made it out there, so yeah, it didn't work out. I might still go and just knock on the new owner's doors, like, hey, do you mind if I just go and collect all the snakes in your yard? But yeah, mainly the Keys. Like, those are...
Keys corns are fucking rad, man.
How far north do corns go? Do they go all the way up to New Jersey?
New Jersey, there are corn snakes found in the Pine Barrens, yeah, and they are beautiful. They lose that red saturation in the body color, but gain red saturation in the saddles and have this really neat kind of gray brown color. They look a lot like the Eastern Milks in that area. Really, really cool. Eric also said one of the prettiest snakes, we're not going to get it in the hobby, is the Tennessee locality corn snakes. A lot of very sharp, deep oranges. It's kind of almost the more west you go with corn snakes, you start getting more orange.
Or then you get to brown when you hit Oklahoma.
You hit brown when you hit Oklahoma because they're emerald.
Right.
One of the sad things about the corn snake hobby is some of the stuff that comes out of Georgia, I believe Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky. That area of corn snakes is gorgeous. Very neat umber brown kind of these kind of auburn colors with these really red saddles, and you get a lot of contrast in the color, and we just can't have them in the hobby, which is ridiculous.
You can't have them in the state. I mean, a
You can't
collector
collect
can't
them at
go
all.
there? Oh, okay.
Cannot collect them all. I believe Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, and Georgia, you can't collect anything local.
Definitely Georgia.
Definitely Georgia. Well, you can't even have them in Georgia. But there's so many of those kind of Bible Belt states right there. You can't collect anything. Hey, John, any other localities you remember from back in the day that you don't see anymore? Or?
Man, the first locality I saw was Okiti, then Miami, and I saw some Keys corns like Joe was talking about.
They're cool.
No, I mean, is there like a specific like New Orleans locality corn?
In New Orleans, that would be Slowinski. So that'd be a parish of Slowinski. Emerald Slowinski. I would.
East side of the river is still Slowinski.
No.
What about Georgia? I mean, Alabama and Mississippi. Do they have?
Alabama, I think, has the same collection laws
as Georgia.
As Georgia, yeah.
What about Mississippi?
I don't think Mississippi's even real.
It's there. It's a 30-minute time.
What's the most overrated?
The most overrated. You know what sucks? It's probably the best one. It's Okiti. The problem is we don't have enough. You know what's overrated?
You know why Okiti is overrated? It's because people have a normal looking corn that looks like an Okiti, and they call it Okiti. And I say, isn't that a locale from the Okiti Hunt Club? Right.
Well, in the CornStars hobby,
now have y'all said that's a mutation? That's a phenotype.
We have Okiti phase and we have Okiti locality.
Okay.
So we kind of delineated that when people were actually Chris Montross, Howie Sherman, some of those guys were really putting in the work to have pure Okitis. And then you had people like Carol Huddleston, Walter Smith, Lee Abbott.
Yeah.
Were putting in the work to make Okiti phase. And that's the thing is you have Miami Okitis that are the combination of the two phases that took, 20 years of line breeding, if not more. 30 years.
Mother Nature did it perfect in Okiti Hunt Club.
Yes, but how do you get that kind of extreme collaboration of those phases? It's yes, is it this? Yes, is it that? And there's kind of a dichotomy there. So in the corn snake hobby, we have Miami and Okiti phase, but then we also have Miami and Okiti true locality. One thing I will say, Miami locality animals, there you go. What locality is overrated? Miami locality. Dade County animals kind of like...
Because they're not all silver and red.
No, like a lot of them suck.
I think the mutation I don't like the most is, how do you say it? Terrazzo?
John.
That's funny. I love them.
Yeah, Terrazzo's like one of the rarest mutations in the hobby.
I remember when they first came out, they looked like a striped, just like a what do you call them?
It's like a striped diffuse kind of look.
No, like what do you call
tessera.
Like a tessera.
But
why is that different?
They're a diffused tessera.
Oh.
Yeah, without all the weird pattern on the side.
I like a banded king snake in California instead of a striped king snake.
Yeah. Joe, what?
But I like a striped Milmoro.
Right.
What's your overrated mutation?
Ooh. Scaleless to start with.
Oh, yes.
They're cool. I don't have any. They're neat looking.
Okay, straight up, there was the scaleless Amel Palmetto that somebody had at Daytona. That thing was fucking cool looking.
That gentleman spent 15, 14 years. He produced the first scaleless albino palmetto, and he's the only person consistently breeding and producing. And I know his name. I have his card. He's the only person producing. He shares the table with Lee Abbott.
Yeah, super nice guy.
Super nice guy.
Whistler?
No.
Because Whistler got all the Don's.
Yes.
The original palmetto.
Oh yeah. No, this guy's a small scale.
Don was like one of my mentors, by the way.
Oh yeah, John grew up with Don Soderbergh.
That's pretty good.
That's a pretty good name drop.
Yeah.
But
he's the one I asked all the dumb questions to.
See, I just asked you my dumb questions. But that gentleman produced the first albino palmetto scaleless, produced the first snow palmetto scaleless, and is the only person consistently producing albino palmetto scaleless that are not bug-eyed.
What do the specs look like then? Are they like bigger now? Because
In the snow, it's a solid white snake. In the albino, they are just kind of like diffused pink. It's kind of interesting.
They look like ink blotches.
Yeah,
The
it's
only-
really weird.
the only
I take my answer
palmettos
back.
I like are what are they called? They have part of the patterns. What are they called? There's splotches on them instead of specks. Like Caitlin
Well,
Rice,
but it's not-
Caitlin Roy Rice produced palmettos that have part of a pattern.
All of the palmettos, as they age, get that. As they age, their scales start showing more and more pattern.
Okay.
Joe, what were you saying?
I changed my answer. It's microscale.
Oh, microscale.
Ew.
Creepy as fuck. I don't like it.
Yeah, you're right.
I think the microscale group is really interesting.
Or the scaleless that have this like one row of scales down the back.
Yeah,
And have like a couple on their head.
the scaleless and the microscaleless group. I'm not gonna hate on it. It's a unique group.
They still have belly scales,
They
right?
still have belly scales. Yeah, they have the tummy scales. My oversaturated morph. I got to pick a morph that's overrated.
Tessera, come on.
No, not Tessera. Tessera's not overrated, but it is overplayed. It's overplayed, but it's not overrated because Tessera's a badass.
I remember when they first came out too.
John, we weren't all born.
No, it's all Don Soderbergh. I go to Don's table every show, and that's all the new thing.
John, I'm in the middle of a
Go ahead,
quandary. A quandary. Overrated morph.
Come on, fight that ADHD. You got it.
Man, honestly, I see so many.
Don't say Ultramel.
I'm not
That's
gonna.
my
I
favorite.
love Ultramel.
Still fighting it.
Man.
He likes them all.
I know I feel bad saying this out loud. I don't think I like lavenders. I don't know why.
Is that a T positive?
No, lavender is its complete own gene. It does create a purple. But the weird thing here's something to learn about, John.
It's not tyrosinates.
If a lavender snake, if you look at it, it looks purple. It's a very saturated hypoanery type, right? It's a very unique morph. If you have a scaleless lavender, it looks like it's normal. You can't tell. The morph is only visible in the scales. So when you compound lavender with things like
Because they're in layers. The colors are in layers.
yes, but they're only in the scales in lavender. So if I have a visual lavender scaleless, it looks like a completely normal scaleless corn
It's
snake.
like you shave a dog that's tricolor and it's white underneath.
Or you shave a zebra and it's black.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think I love lavender. And I've had lavenders and I've had lavender combinations. I do think some of the lavender combos, sun-kissed lavender is amazing. I don't think I love lavender. And I don't mean to
When I grew up, Sunkist was the first hypo.
Yeah. It's not hypo anymore. Now we have true hypos.
Oh, kind of like the Applegate Special Pyro.
Yeah. It's not hypo.
First hypo. No, there's
Not
two
hypo.
others now.
It's not hypo. All right.
Then when I grew up, seeing an albino was like finding a fucking unicorn.
Yeah.
But I'm also old.
All right. Well, you're not old. Joe, none of us, we are actually the three oldest anybody that's ever been on Herpetoculture Network.
Yeah.
Because of me.
I'm gonna scroll through the comments, see if we have any more questions. John, this is your first time on CornStars.
Yep.
We got to ask you the CornStars questions that we ask everybody.
No, I'll never breed scaleless.
What do you think about scaleless?
Never.
What do you think about the palmetto corn snake?
Only if it's be able to be outcrossed where it don't get bug eyes.
That is
Never gonna happen.
You can take a palmetto to a wild caught. You
Well,
can take the
look at
babies from that one.
leucistic rat snakes. 90% of them have bug eyes now.
Yep. It's
Yeah.
tied directly to the leucism. It's done.
Leucistic alterna do not, because alterna already have bug eyes.
You know what's funny in the one thing I will say, because there's two different lines of leucism in Texas rats. If you have the rusty Texas rats,
That ain't leucism.
but the thing is, if you take two rusties and breed them together, they create a
Both.
leucistic.
It creates both.
They create both.
Yep.
The weird thing about true recessive leucistics is they create bug eyes. But if you take the,
Is it from line breeding or is it from the gene?
I believe it's from the gene. So Dr. Wyman was on one of the podcasts back in the day with Joe Phelan. And so one of the last things that forms in a snake as it develops in the
Eyelids.
egg is the eyelids. And leucism is the lack of color, and
And
so
color is towards the end too.
towards the
Yep.
end as
I
well.
know. I've had babies with screwed up patterns
And they got
and
fucked up
colors
eyes.
because of
Yeah.
it was all leaked.
Tyson Dallas just said right here, I'm not a big fan of lavender either.
Hey,
You're
Tyson.
I think it's a good looking snake, but if I think something was overplayed in the corset hobby, I think it's lavenders. Anyways, yeah. So leucistics in most species, because look at leucistics, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a little rant here. Look at leucistics in most species. Almost every leucistic
Not a deer.
has not a deer. I'm not fucking talking
Oh, you
about
said
deer,
most
John.
species.
Most species of reptiles
Okay.
has a visual heterozygous, right? So if you look at leucistic
alternative, yeah.
Leucistic alterna have a visual heterozygous, but leucistic crested geckos have a visual heterozygous. It's what we call lily whites. Leucistic African fattails have a visual heterozygous. It's what we call whiteout. It's called whiteout. Carpet pythons.
They're already white.
No, carpet pythons have.
There's a leucistic carpet python?
No, and I'm going to tell you why. Every single one of these leucistic versions, the animal when it hatches out of the egg in the super form is solid white, but the het version has deleterious issues, and it's a fatal super form.
So are there any leucistics other than alterna? So leucistic alterna sometimes will get some orange color all down their back.
I have leucistic pine snakes. They when they hatch, they have pattern.
And they lose it.
They lose it
and
as
they're
they
solid white as adults.
solid white.
So
well, no, they're
leucistic alterna
they're
are
pink and
opposite.
yellow. Yeah,
I don't know if they're pure. I know the breeder personally. So anyway,
that was Bechtel. Yeah, they're pure.
No, it was Bobble.
Oh, sorry, Bobble.
And they hatch out white, solid white, and with age, you'll get the orange sheen over the top of them.
Leucistic pine snakes hatch out with pattern, and then as they age, become like kind of pink or yellow sided. So
there's leucistic corns.
Yeah, palmettos. They have a visual heterozygous.
Oh yeah, that's what we call.
But I also think there's leucistic holbrooki, and I think there's leucistic fordiana, and I think
there's
that's
white-sided holbrooki.
I think that's a form of leucism.
You think that's leucistic?
What about the pied corns?
What about pied-side corns? Yeah.
That's true, but pied-sided and white-sided are different things.
Right.
Because they're not uniform.
Yeah.
Anyway, I used to have white-sided holbrooki, lavender holbrooki, and albino holbrooki.
Yeah. So look at
the het holbrooki that were white-sided would have yellow up the sides. Remember the picture I showed you?
Yeah.
And they were visible het. White walls.
Leucistic carpet
white
python.
Wall, not white side.
Leucistic carpet pythons. None has ever hatched and survived. They're solid white carpet python. But the heterozygous form of it is the jaguar carpet python. And they have stargazer, they have all those issues. So combined, it becomes a fatal gene. Lily whites.
Dead white snake.
Together, yeah, lily whites paired together, a dead white gecko. So a lot of leucistic forms are fatal. And I truly believe that it's the incompletion of the scales in the head and the face, and that's what also causes the bug eye.
And how do you protect yourself against the sun? And
but you're assuming that the genetic that evolution plays fairly. It doesn't, but yeah. Well, what? This is fun, Joe.
Yeah,
I love you.
I know.
So what was the other question? Was there any more questions?
There's no more questions. We only got 2 questions today.
For me. You said I already knew one of them. I'll never breed scale is.
Localities that you think we should spend a little bit more time on.
All Mexico.
Corn snakes.
Oh, corn snakes. there's Emery in Mexico, right?
There are Emery in Mexico. I would love. Oh man, Inner Montana, the stuff out of Colorado for Emery.
Did y'all see Don's last picture of that Inner Montana?
That shit is rowdy.
Looked like a granite Inner Montana. I don't know. I mean, if we can get to places like Missouri, what about Missouri freaking corns? What about? I mean, I never heard of any. Right? I never heard of anything north of Tennessee corns, Ohio corns. You know what I mean? So why don't we expand our locality?
Get people to start doing more locality stuff. Yeah.
Indianapolis corns.
Yeah.
Indy corns.
Indianapolis? Where's that?
Indiana.
I don't know where that is.
That's where the next Kluberfest is.
Is it? Are you sure?
Every year.
Every year, Indianapolis. Okay. Well, thank you to our sponsors, BlackBox Cages. Again, everybody needs to check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, exceptionally engineered. Use code THN24. That might be right. That might not be right. At
Pretty sure
checkout,
it's THN24.
What?
I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Okay, THN24. We did it. We did it, boys. We'll use that at checkout for a sweet little discount. Check out JT with Silent Hill Reptiles. JT and Mindy are, again, putting in the Lord's work when it comes to corn snake morphs, lines, locality stuff.
I think they've got stuff up on Morph Market right now.
He does. They do. Excuse me. And it is
so nice.
awesome. I am constantly battling myself to not buy more corn snakes because they're awesome. And don't forget, Full Vis Apparel, making some of the best reptile-related apparel out there. Little Kings of Leonis, baby. Get that hemipene hat that everybody loves.
Wow, there's 2 of them.
And badge. Imagine it was like Hemis. But yeah, enjoyed doing this live. I think we actually still have quite a few listeners. Justin, so here's the thing. We don't know how the internet works, and Justin has to shut us off. So love everybody that has come on and listened. Let's see if we had any questions, but Justin has to shut us off, so we're just going to keep going until he's...
That's really funny.
Any questions? Any more comments?
No idea.
So we had a comment that said, let's play a